For 40 years, he roamed the bridge every night. The police considered him dangerous. People were afraid of him. But no one knew that this man had saved over 200 lives in 40 years, without telling anyone, quietly, every night. This is the secret heroism story of the bridge keeper.
In the city, there was a bridge that crossed the river, a tall old bridge where the water below was dark and deep. For 40 years, the people of the city had known about the strange old man who walked that bridge every single night. His name was Henry Walsh, and he was 73 years old. Every evening at sunset, Henry would leave his small apartment and walk to the bridge. He would pace back and forth across it for hours, sometimes until midnight, sometimes until dawn. He wore the same old coat, the same worn shoes, and he walked with a slight limp from an old injury. The police knew Henry well. They had stopped him hundreds of times over the years, asking what he was doing on the bridge so late at night. "Just walking," Henry would say quietly, "just keeping an eye on things." The officers found this answer strange and unsettling, but Henry was not breaking any laws, so they could not make him leave. Local residents complained about Henry constantly. "That crazy old man is on the bridge again," they would say. "He scares people. He lurks in the shadows. Who knows what he is up to? He could be dangerous." Parents warned their children to stay away from the bridge at night. "There is a strange man who walks there," they would say. "He might be mentally ill. He might be dangerous. Stay away from him." Teenagers who crossed the bridge at night would see Henry's silhouette in the darkness and run away frightened. "The bridge creep is there again," they would tell their friends. "He just stands there staring at the water. It is really creepy." Business owners near the bridge wanted Henry banned from the area. "He is bad for business," they complained to the city council. "Tourists see him and think our neighborhood is not safe. He looks homeless and crazy. Someone needs to do something about him." The city council discussed the Henry problem multiple times. Some council members wanted to ban him from the bridge. Others argued he had a right to walk on public property. Social services tried to evaluate Henry for mental illness, but he passed all their tests. He was eccentric, but not mentally incompetent. Henry heard all the rumors about himself. He knew people called him crazy, dangerous, creepy. He knew parents told their children to fear him. He knew business owners wanted him gone. But Henry never defended himself, never explained what he was really doing on that bridge night after night for 40 years. He just kept walking, just kept watching, just kept his silent vigil that no one understood. What no one knew, what Henry had never told anyone, was why he walked that bridge every night. Henry had a mission, a calling, a purpose that had driven him for 4 decades. Henry was watching for people who came to the bridge to die. The bridge was known as a suicide spot. The drop was high enough, the water deep and cold enough, that jumping almost always resulted in death. Over the decades, dozens of desperate people had come to that bridge as their final destination. But many of those people never jumped, because Henry was there. 40 years ago, Henry had been a different man. He had been a successful accountant with a wife, 2 children, and a comfortable life. Then tragedy struck. His teenage son, Marcus, died in a car accident. The grief was unbearable. Henry's marriage fell apart under the weight of loss. His wife left, taking their daughter. Henry's life collapsed. One night, drowning in depression and alcohol, Henry came to the bridge. He stood at the railing, looking down at the dark water, planning to jump. He wanted the pain to end. He wanted to join his son in death. But as Henry climbed onto the railing, a stranger appeared beside him. An old woman, walking her dog across the bridge late at night. She did not grab Henry or yell. She simply said, "It is a beautiful night. Would you like to talk for a moment before you make your decision?" That simple question, that moment of human connection, broke through Henry's despair. He climbed down from the railing and talked to the woman for 3 hours. She did not lecture him or tell him his problems were not real. She just listened and reminded him that pain is temporary, death is permanent, and tomorrow might bring unexpected hope. The woman saved Henry's life that night, and she taught him something profound. Sometimes a person standing at the edge just needs one moment of human connection. One person who sees them and cares to choose life instead of death. The woman told Henry, "I walk this bridge every night. I have stopped 3 people from jumping over the years. Maybe I walk here for a reason. Maybe we all have purposes we do not understand." A week later, Henry read that the woman had died peacefully in her sleep. She had been 89 years old. Henry decided to honor her memory by taking over her mission. Even though his own life was shattered, even though he was still drowning in grief, Henry began walking the bridge every night. He would watch for people who looked too interested in the railing, who stood too close to the edge, who had that particular look of despair he recognized because he had felt it himself. Over 40 years, Henry developed a careful system for his nightly vigil. He learned to recognize the signs of someone in crisis. The way they walked, slow, hesitant, like their body was carrying an unbearable weight. The way they dressed, often too light for the weather, as if they had left home without thinking, driven by impulse and despair. The way they touched the railing, testing its height, looking down at the water, calculating. Henry also learned that every person in crisis needed a different approach. Some needed someone to talk to. Others needed to be left alone but watched from a distance. Some needed to be physically stopped. Henry adjusted his method to each situation. When Henry spotted someone who looked like they might jump, he would approach carefully. Never aggressively, never dramatically. Often, he would simply start a conversation about something ordinary. The weather, the view, the time. "Beautiful night," he might say. "Cold, though? Are you waiting for someone?" That simple human interaction was sometimes enough. The person would be startled out of their dark thoughts, reminded that other people existed, that they were not completely alone even in their despair. Other times, Henry would be more direct. If someone was climbing onto the railing, he would move close and say firmly but kindly, "I understand why you are here. I have been where you are. Please, talk to me for just 5 minutes before you make your decision. 5 minutes will not change anything, if you are determined, but it might help." Over 4 decades, Henry stopped over 200 people from jumping. Some he talked down with hours of conversation. Others he physically restrained until police arrived. A few he simply stood near, his presence alone enough to make them reconsider. Henry never asked for gratitude or recognition. Most of the time, the people he saved never even learned his name. Emergency responders would arrive, take the person to the hospital, and Henry would quietly walk away into the darkness. The police knew Henry had intervened in some suicide attempts, but they did not realize the full extent of his work. They thought he had stopped maybe a dozen people over the years. They had no idea it was over 200. Henry kept a private journal in his apartment, a simple notebook where he recorded each person he had helped. Not their names, which he usually did not know, but brief notes. Young woman, maybe 25, heartbroken. Talked for 2 hours. Agreed to call her sister. November 12, 1985. Middle-aged man, lost job. Stood with him until sunrise. Social worker arrived. March 3, 1992. Teenager. Bullied at school. Parents came. He is safe. June 18, 2004. Parents came. He is safe. June 18. 217 entries. 217 lives saved. And no one knew. One autumn evening, a journalism student named Maya Chen was assigned to create a documentary about urban legends in the city. She chose to investigate the crazy bridge man that everyone talked about, but no one really understood. Maya set up a camera in a hidden location near the bridge and began filming Henry's nightly walks. She also interviewed local residents, business owners, and police about Henry. Everyone had opinions, almost all negative. "He is probably mentally ill," one business owner said. "Someone should do something about him before he hurts someone." "My kids are scared of him," a mother said. "Why does he need to be on that bridge every single night? It is not normal." "We have evaluated him multiple times," a police officer explained. "He is not breaking any laws, but he is definitely strange. We keep an eye on him." Maya spent 2 weeks filming Henry from a distance. She watched him pace the bridge, stop occasionally to look at the water, sometimes sit on a bench for hours. To Maya, his behavior did seem odd and purposeless. She began to think the documentary would be about mental illness and urban isolation. Then, on her 15th night of filming, something happened that changed everything. Maya's camera captured a young man arriving at the bridge around 11 p.m. The man was maybe 25 years old, wearing a business suit, walking like someone in a trance. He went directly to the railing and climbed onto it, preparing to jump. Henry, who had been sitting on a bench 50 feet away, stood up immediately. He walked quickly but calmly toward the young man. "Excuse me," Henry said in a gentle voice. "I am just an old man who walks this bridge every night. Would you mind talking to me for a few minutes? I get lonely out here." The young man turned, startled. "Leave me alone. I know what I am doing." "I am sure you do," Henry said, moving closer but not threateningly. "I am sure you have thought about this carefully, but I have been thinking about jumping off this bridge myself for 40 years. Maybe we could compare notes." This unexpected statement caught the young man's attention. He looked at Henry with confusion. "You think about jumping too?" "Every single day," Henry lied smoothly. "But I am too much of a coward. I just walk here every night thinking about it." "You are braver than me, I suppose." The young man climbed down from the railing, interested despite himself. "Why do you think about it?" "Because I lost my son 40 years ago," Henry said, telling the truth now. "The pain never completely goes away. Some days I think dying would be easier than living. But then I think, maybe tomorrow will be different. Maybe there is one more good thing I am supposed to see or do before I die. So I come here and walk and think and wait for tomorrow." Maya watched through her camera as Henry talked to the young businessman for 3 hours. She filmed everything, their long conversation on the bench, Henry making phone calls on the man's behalf, a counselor arriving, the young man finally agreeing to get help. After the man left safely with the counselor, Maya approached Henry. He was sitting alone on the bench, looking exhausted. "I saw what you did," Maya said. "I have been filming you for 2 weeks for a documentary. I thought you were just a strange old man. But tonight, I saw you save that person's life." Henry looked at Maya with tired eyes. "Then you should delete that footage. I do not want attention. I do not want to be on camera." "How long have you been doing this?" Maya asked, ignoring his request. "How many people have you saved?" Henry was quiet for a long moment. Then, perhaps because he was exhausted, perhaps because he was getting old and thought someone should know the truth, he answered, 40 years, 217 people. Maybe a few more I am not counting. The ones I just stood near, just watched until they changed their minds on their own." Maya sat down on the bench, stunned. 217 people? Over 40 years? And no one knows about this? "The police know I have stopped some suicide attempts," Henry said, "but they do not know the full extent, and I prefer it that way. I do not do this for recognition. I do this because someone did it for me 40 years ago. An old woman saved my life when I came here to jump. She told me she walked this bridge to watch for people like me. When she died, I took over her mission." "That is incredible," Maya said. "You are a hero. People should know about this." "No," Henry said firmly. "If people know, everything changes. The desperate people stop coming because they know someone is watching. Or worse, they come anyway, but are more determined because they know I will try to stop them. My effectiveness depends on not being expected, on being just a random old man who happens to be here at the right moment." Maya understood his logic, but she also felt the public deserved to know the truth. What about all the people who call you crazy, who want you banned from the bridge? Don't they deserve to know they are wrong about you? Henry shrugged. "Let them think what they want. Their opinions do not matter. The only thing that matters is being here when someone needs me." But Maya had captured everything on video. Henry saving the young businessman, their conversation afterward, Henry's admission about 217 people over 40 years. She had documented proof of 40 years of secret heroism. Maya faced an ethical dilemma. Should she respect Henry's wish for privacy? Or should she tell his story to change how people saw him and perhaps inspire others? Maya spent a week wrestling with her decision. She had incredible footage. A real hero doing genuine good in complete anonymity. This could be a powerful documentary that changed hearts and minds. But Henry had explicitly asked her not to use it. Maya decided to compromise. She edited her documentary to tell Henry's story, but she obscured his face and did not use his real name. She called him the Guardian and focused on his mission rather than his identity. She included the footage of him saving the young businessman, but blurred faces and altered voices to protect privacy. When the documentary was completed, Maya showed it to Henry before releasing it publicly. They met at a coffee shop near the bridge. Henry watched the 20-minute documentary on Maya's laptop. His face showed complex emotions, discomfort at being the subject, but also something like relief that finally someone understood what he had been doing all these years. "You protected my identity," Henry observed when it finished. "Thank you for that. But I did tell your story," Maya said. "I hope you understand why. Not for you, you don't want recognition, but for other people. There might be someone watching this who is depressed and thinking about suicide. Maybe seeing that someone cares enough to walk a bridge every night. Looking for them will give them hope. There might be someone who has been thinking about helping others but did not know how. Maybe your example will inspire them." Henry was quiet, considering this. "What about the people who wanted me banned from the bridge? The ones who called me crazy? I interviewed them again after filming you save that man," Maya said. "I did not tell them it was you. I kept your identity secret like you asked. But I showed them footage of the rescue and asked their opinion. Most of them changed their minds completely. They said if someone is walking that bridge to save lives, that person is a hero, not a threat." "They said that?" Henry seemed surprised. "One mother cried," Maya said. "She had been one of the loudest voices wanting you banned. When she saw someone actually saving a life, she said, 'I feel ashamed for judging someone whose mission I did not understand.'" Maya pulled up her phone and showed Henry something else. "I posted a short clip from the documentary on social media 3 days ago with a question. If someone walked a bridge every night for 40 years, looking for people who wanted to die, just to talk them down and give them hope, would that person be a hero or a creep?" The responses have been overwhelming. Henry looked at the comments. Hundreds of people had responded. "That person is an angel. We need more people like this in the world. I wish someone like this had been there when my brother jumped. This person has saved families from unimaginable grief." Henry's eyes filled with tears. For 40 years, people had called him crazy, dangerous, a nuisance. Now, without even knowing who he was, people were calling him a hero. After the documentary's release and the young woman's emotional reunion with Henry, Maya organized something special. She quietly reached out to every person she could identify who Henry had saved over the 40 years, people whose names she found through police reports, hospital records, and Henry's own journal. Maya told each person that she was creating a follow-up documentary about the Guardian's impact, and invited them to participate. She did not reveal Henry's identity to them, only that she could arrange for them to meet him if they wanted. 63 people responded, a fraction of the 217 Henry had saved, but still an overwhelming number. These were people whose lives had been saved by Henry, who had gone on to live, to heal, to build families and careers, all because Henry had been on that bridge at the right moment. Maya arranged for these 63 people to gather at a community center near the bridge. She told Henry there was a suicide prevention conference she wanted him to attend. He reluctantly agreed, still uncomfortable with public attention. When Henry entered the community center, he found 63 people standing and applauding. On the wall behind them was a massive timeline showing 40 years with photos, brief stories, and dates, a visual representation of 217 lives saved. "These people are here because of you," Maya told Henry. "Each one of them is someone you saved. Each one has a story about how you changed their life." Henry stood frozen, overwhelmed. He saw the young woman from the recent reunion. He saw a middle-aged man he remembered from 1987, a veteran with PTSD who had been about to jump. He saw an elderly woman he had helped in 2015. He saw young people and old people, men and women, people of every background. One by one, they came forward to hug Henry and thank him. Each person shared briefly what had happened to them after that night on the bridge. The veteran from 1987. You told me that my life had value even though I felt worthless. I got treatment for my PTSD. I have been married for 30 years. I have 5 grandchildren who exist because you were on that bridge. A woman from 1994. I had just lost my baby to miscarriage. I thought I could not live with the pain. You sat with me and cried with me. You told me about losing your son. You made me feel less alone. I went on to have 3 children. They are all here today. She gestured to 3 adults in their 20s who came forward to hug Henry. A man from 2008. I had lost my job and my home. I thought my family would be better off without me. You told me that problems are temporary, but death is permanent. You helped me contact social services. I rebuilt my life. My family is intact because of you. Each story was a miracle. Each person represented not just one life saved, but all the ripple effects. Children born, families preserved, careers built, good deeds done by people who were alive to do them. Henry cried as he listened to story after story. For 40 years, he had walked that bridge wondering if his mission mattered. Now he saw the evidence, 63 people here, and more than 150 others out there somewhere, all alive because of him. After the reunion, Henry's life changed in ways he had never expected. He was still anonymous to most of the public. The documentary had protected his identity, but within the mental health and suicide prevention community, he had become a legend and an inspiration. Organizations dedicated to suicide prevention invited Henry to speak at conferences and training sessions. He was uncomfortable with the attention at first, but he realized that sharing his methods and experience could help others save lives. So he began teaching. Henry trained hundreds of crisis intervention volunteers. He taught them what he had learned over 40 years. How to recognize someone in crisis, how to approach them without startling or threatening, how to listen without judging, how to stay present until help arrived. The most important thing, Henry would tell trainees, is to make them feel seen. Most people who want to die feel invisible, like their existence does not matter to anyone. Just by noticing them, by caring enough to talk to them, you remind them they are not invisible. You remind them their life has value. Henry also helped design the Bridge Watcher program that spread across the country. Based on his 40 years of experience, he created protocols and training materials. His methods became standard practice for suicide prevention on bridges nationwide. But Henry continued his own nightly walks. Even at 73 years old, even though there were now trained volunteers walking the bridge too, Henry felt called to continue his personal mission. One night, Maya joined him on his walk for her follow-up documentary. As they walked together, she asked him, after 40 years, after saving over 200 lives, after inspiring a national movement, was it worth it? The 40 years of being called crazy, of being feared and judged, of walking alone night after night? Henry thought about this question as they walked. Finally, he said, every person who called me crazy, who wanted me banned from this bridge, who told their children to fear me, they were wrong about my intentions. But they were not wrong to be concerned about a strange old man walking a bridge at night. I cannot blame them for not understanding. But was it worth it? Maya pressed. The loneliness, the misunderstanding, the decades of being seen as a threat when you were actually a protector? Henry stopped walking and looked out at the river. I think about the old woman who saved me 40 years ago. She walked this bridge in anonymity, just like I did. She died before anyone knew what she had done. I only knew because she told me that night. If she had not been here, I would have jumped. I would have been dead for 40 years. My daughter would have grown up without a father. I would have missed 40 years of life. Painful years sometimes, but also years filled with purpose and meaning. That woman gave me 40 years I would not have had. And through me, 217 other people got to continue their lives. And through them, who knows how many children were born, how many good deeds were done, how many other lives were touched. That is the mathematics of salvation. It multiplies in ways we can never fully calculate. Henry turned to Maya. So, yes, it was worth it. Every night of being alone on this bridge was worth it. Every person who called me crazy was worth it, because somewhere out there right now, there are hundreds of people living their lives, loving their families, pursuing their dreams, and they can do all of that because someone cared enough to walk a bridge in the darkness looking for them. 2 years after the documentary, at age 75, Henry continued his nightly walks on the bridge. His body was older, his steps slower, but his vigilance remained constant. One cold winter evening, Henry was making his usual rounds when he saw a young girl, maybe 13 years old, standing at the railing, looking down at the water. She wore a school backpack and had tears streaming down her face. Henry approached carefully. "Hello," he said gently. "That is a pretty cold spot to stand. Would you like to sit on the bench with me for a moment?" The girl looked at him with frightened eyes. "Are you the guardian from the documentary?" Henry was surprised. "You watched the documentary? You are very young." "We watched it in school," the girl said. "In health class. They showed it to teach us about suicide prevention and about not judging people. I did not think the guardian was real. I thought it was just a story." "I am real," Henry said. "And I am here. Will you sit with me?" The girl climbed down from the railing and sat on the bench beside Henry. She cried for a long time before she could speak. Finally, she told him her story. Bullying at school, feeling worthless, thinking her family would be better off without her. Henry listened to all of it. Then he told her about his son Marcus, who had died at 16. "The worst day of my life was when I lost my son," Henry said. "Nothing has ever hurt more. If you jump from this bridge tonight, someone will experience that same pain. Your mother, your father, your friends. That pain does not go away. It stays forever." "But I hurt so much right now," the girl sobbed. "I know," Henry said. "I know that pain feels unbearable. But pain is temporary if you let people help you. Death is permanent. Give the pain a chance to heal. Give people a chance to help you. Give tomorrow a chance to be different than today." They talked for 2 hours. Other volunteers came to help. The girl's parents arrived, frantic and grateful. She went home safe that night. As Henry watched the family leave, Maya, who had been filming the entire encounter with permission, approached him. 218, she said. "That is how many people you have saved now." Henry smiled tiredly. "I am getting too old for this. My body cannot handle these cold nights much longer." "So you will stop?" Maya asked. "No," Henry said. "I will walk this bridge until I cannot walk anymore, but I do not have to walk alone now. There are volunteers here every night. The mission will continue without me." "Because of you," Maya pointed out. "All of this, the volunteers, the training, the national movement, exists because you walked this bridge alone for 40 years when everyone called you crazy." Henry looked out at the bridge where volunteers in yellow vests were positioned at intervals, ready to help anyone in crisis. He saw the safety improvements, the crisis phones, the signs with messages of hope. He saw his mission multiplied and strengthened. "No," Henry said quietly. "All of this exists because an old woman walked this bridge 43 years ago and saved a broken man who wanted to die. She gave him a purpose. She showed him that one person who cares can make a difference." Everything that came after, the 218 people saved, the volunteers trained, the national movement, all of it began with her. I was just continuing what she started. "And now, hundreds of people are continuing what you continued," Maya said. "That is the mathematics of salvation you talked about. One person saves one person, who saves hundreds, who inspire thousands. Your old woman started a wave of salvation that is still spreading." Henry nodded. "I hope she knows, wherever she is. I hope she knows that the broken man she saved on this bridge went on to save others, who inspired others, who will save still others. That is her legacy. That is all our legacy." Not the lives we save personally, but the chain reaction of salvation we start. As they stood on the bridge in the cold night air, a volunteer approached them. "Mr. Walsh," the young man said, "there is someone asking for you." An elderly man was standing near the bench. He looked at Henry with recognition and tears. 42 years ago, the man said, I came to this bridge to die. A younger man talked to me for 6 hours. He told me about his son who had died. He made me promise to get help. That man was you." Henry stared at the elderly man, searching his memory. Then recognition came. March 1981. You were 33 years old. You had just been divorced and lost custody of your children. "Yes," the man said. "You saved my life that night. I got help. I rebuilt my relationship with my children. I have 7 grandchildren now. They exist because you were here. I saw the documentary, and I knew it was you. I had to come thank you." The 2 old men embraced, both crying. Around them, volunteers continued their watch. The bridge lights glowed warm against the cold darkness, and the river flowed below. No longer a destination for death, but a reminder of life's precious fragility and the human capacity to save each other. Henry Walsh, the crazy old bridge man who everyone had wanted banned, had walked this bridge for 43 years. He had been called insane, dangerous, creepy, and worse, but he had saved 218 lives, inspired a national movement, and proved that one person who refuses to look away from suffering can change the world. The bridge guardian had kept his watch. And now, his watch would never end, because he had taught hundreds of others to stand guard, to notice the desperate, to offer hope in darkness. His mission had multiplied into immortality. The story of Henry Walsh, the bridge guardian, teaches us profound truths about judgment, heroism, mental health, and the power of one dedicated person to change the world. First, it teaches us about the danger of judging people before understanding them. For 40 years, Henry was called crazy, dangerous, and creepy. People wanted him banned from the bridge. Parents warned children to stay away from him. Business owners complained about him. But all of them were wrong. They judged his behavior without understanding his mission. This reminds us that we often judge people based on appearances or behaviors we do not understand, and our judgments can be completely wrong. Second, it teaches us that the most important work often happens in anonymity. Henry saved 218 lives over 43 years, and almost no one knew. He simply did the work because it needed to be done. This challenges our culture's obsession with recognition and social media validation. The most valuable contributions to society are often made by people working quietly, without applause, doing good simply because it is right. Third, it teaches us about the multiplication effect of salvation. Henry saved 218 people directly, but those people went on to have family, build careers, help others. The ripples from Henry's work extend far beyond those 218 individuals. When we save one life, we are saving all the future good that person will do. The mathematics of salvation multiply in ways we cannot calculate. Fourth, it teaches us that suffering can be transformed into purpose. Henry came to the bridge 43 years ago wanting to die. His pain was unbearable, but an old woman transformed his suffering into purpose. By showing him, he could help others facing the same despair. Our worst pain can become our greatest source of meaning if we choose to use it to help others who suffer similarly. Fifth, it teaches us about the importance of suicide prevention and mental health awareness. Depression lies to people and tells them they are worthless, that no one cares, that death is the only escape. Henry's presence on that bridge was a physical reminder that someone does care, that life has value, that help is available. We need more guardians, people willing to notice the desperate and offer hope. Sixth, it teaches us that heroism is often ordinary people doing extraordinary things consistently. Henry was not a superhero. He was an ordinary man with an extraordinary commitment. He showed up every night for 43 years. Heroism is not usually one dramatic act. It is the daily choice to keep showing up, keep caring, keep serving, even when no one notices or appreciates it. Seventh, It teaches us about legacy and immortality through service. Henry could have died on that bridge 43 years ago. Instead, he lived and saved 218 people. But his true legacy is not just those 218 lives. It is the thousands of volunteers he inspired, the national movement he started, that changed culture around suicide prevention. His mission became immortal because he taught others to continue it. Finally, it teaches us that one person really can change the world. Henry was just one man walking one bridge, but his 43 years of dedication saved hundreds of lives directly and inspired changes that will save thousands more. This story reminds us that we do not need wealth, power, or fame to make a profound difference. We just need to care enough to show up and do what needs to be done. The questions this story asks us are challenging. How many people in our lives do we judge without understanding? How many crazy or weird people are actually doing good work we do not see? What would change if we looked for the best in people instead of assuming the worst? And more personally, are there desperate people around us right now that we are too busy or too distracted to notice? Are there people suffering in silence who just need someone to see them and care? What would happen if we took the time to notice, to ask if someone is okay, to offer connection to someone who seems alone? Henry Walsh was called crazy for 43 years. But he was not crazy, he was committed. He was not dangerous, he was protective. He was not creepy, he was caring. He was a guardian angel walking among us, mistaken for a threat, saving lives while being judged as worthless. How many guardians walk among us right now, doing essential work that we do not recognize because we are too quick to judge and too slow to understand? The Bridge Guardian taught us that the strangest person might be the greatest hero, that the most important work might be invisible, that one person who refuses to give up, refuses to stop caring, refuses to look away from suffering, can save hundreds of lives and inspire thousands of others. That is a legacy worth any amount of misunderstanding. That is heroism in its truest, most humble form. That is what it means to be a guardian, standing watch in the darkness so others can find their way back to the light.